What's going on, guys? Grab a pen and jot this down. Today, we're going to quickly talk about the SpaceX IPO. There are three vectors of where I'm looking into, or what's caught my interest when it comes to the SpaceX IPO. First up is obviously this is a big deal for the space industry. It was nascent for pretty much dead for 50 years. I'll talk about that. Two, this is the largest capital raise IPO in history. I think the numbers right now are somewhere in the neighborhood of $72 billion of capital raise for the June 12th IPO. And then three is the demand for orbital data centers. Those are the three areas that I'm looking at. I think there's a lot more. I'm just not a space guy in terms of engineering or technology, but I do love some elements. I love sci-fi, so I do love a lot of elements of what's happening. What are going to be the outcomes from the SpaceX IPO? Already, we've benefited quite a bit. So, first up, I've been paying attention to space stuff for a long time. The important point in history is that the Apollo missions were amazing in the 60s and 70s. Obviously, President Kennedy's speech about going to the moon because we choose to do the hard things was obviously very monumental. I had the speech on my desk for like 2 years, on my literally where I slept next to my cabinet. I think it's very important, very motivational about pushing us to the future. But I think in 1972 was the last Apollo mission. I don't remember which one. I think it was like 16 or 17. But we haven't been back to the moon since. And what's interesting is this is like an important observation when it comes to actually the private versus public sector. So the public sector, the government in this case, was able to raise somewhere in the neighborhood at that period of time over $10 billion to do this space mission, which wasn't necessary. It was a race against Sputnik in Russia. It was critical for not only humanity, but for America to win that technology war. We won it. We proved our dominance in that period of time, but for some reason, there were a lot of things that happened in the 1972, 1974 period where the economy and the world shifted, where we stopped building and innovating. And this has a lot to do with actual economics in terms of like money line, getting off the gold standard, moving the credit. But that moment in time was pretty critical because the government stopped actually investing in the people and then started like figuring out how to tax the people. So physical rockets, literal rocket science, the hardest pieces of engineering, bringing together like manufacturing, hardware, chemical sciences, even like obviously physics and chemistry, and then even like as far as like medical sciences, because you have to do ventilation systems, you have to build the suits, you have to do all this stuff for the actual astronauts. It's interesting because we haven't been back to space in 50 years. Now, until Jared Isaacman and the Trump administration had rebuilt the Space Force, it was never on the agenda for any president in 50 years, multiple presidency terms, to go back to the moon. So we spent billions of dollars, the government, the public sector spent billions of dollars to invest to go to the moon. It was amazing. Obviously, we watched Apollo 13 and read the stories about Gene Frantzman, I forget his name, the guy who said failure is not an option. We did all this stuff. It was really important. And then all of a sudden the government stopped. It literally could not do this the hardest thing in the world. Now, if you think about that, like it physically could not, it spent tens of billions of dollars. It could not physically do that thing anymore. That's a really good indication of everything else in the economy. Like the government cannot do anything else well. If it cannot do that one thing, it gave up on that one mission 50 years ago. And then the reason it really sparks my mind is because in the Biden administration, we had those astronauts, those 4 astronauts, I think, that were going to the International Space Station, and they were stuck in space. And then the only person who can get the astronauts back to Earth, they're supposed to only be there for like 6 days or something, was SpaceX and Elon, and they refused to give him the protocol or the mission to do that. And the crazy thing is we don't have the technology. Like no one else has the technology to do this. So I think that's a number one lever. Like SpaceX, with less than $10 billion, has done I don't know how many hundreds of launches, has built 4 or 5 different variations of rockets that are all amazing. It has built Starlink, which has brought the internet to everybody in the world. on the edge case has brought high-speed internet to everybody that's on a plane, which was not the case for many years. And obviously, my favorite fact about SpaceX is that it is primarily American engineering, American ingenuity, American engineering. It is so important to understand that SpaceX, because it's considered advanced weapons technology, it actually doesn't have the ability to hire foreign immigrants at the same capacity as like a Google, Apple, and Microsoft, because hardware, literal rockets, is literally rocket, like military technology. So Elon he has a restriction that, like, I don't know how many employees, I think it's like 30,000 employees at SpaceX. They're like 99, 98% American engineers. Even if they have foreign blood, they're like true Americans. We don't have the option unless they do something very exceptional, which is rare. And if you think about just American ingenuity, like, that's the company that has proven it to everybody that, hey, we can push the limits of our current capacity. We have the people, we have the resources. We literally can build the infrastructure. He literally built a town in Houston called Starbase with a mayor and all this stuff. So I think that's amazing. Like, on one side, the government has not been able to do it. They've just rebuilt their infrastructure to do it, and only during the Trump administration. And then two, it's like, it is amazing what these people can do with private capital. Like, there's no limits. Building a rocket and sending it to space and then having it come back down is one of the hardest challenges. And I believe it when they say it's like the most impressive engineering feat we've ever designed as humans. Like, very impressive. AI will be impressed. Number two, what did I say? Capital raise. $75 billion. So there are a couple important factors regarding the IPO. Number one is that Elon owns XAI and X.com. He merged those. The factor that's similar between those two was Grok, which is his AI, which is the fourth-ish best AI LLM model that competes with Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude. It's very good. They just released a Grok build model for coding developers. It's gotten great reviews. And he has merged XAI, which is about $14 billion market cap in the private sector, with SpaceX. And his intent is to just push all of the AI technology into the SpaceX engineering, and then he improves his focus. So it's already successful. It happened, I think, in March or something, that merger. I think it makes sense in the way he's heading and how he's engineering and physics focused, and that's how Grok is kind of built as a differentiator from the other LLM models. $75 billion is important because he's first to market, and he's going to market as a space IPO. There have been other space IPOs, but none of them have been successful. The important part is that he's able to raise a tremendous amount of capital based on the engineering of rockets, not the engineering of AI. Because the competitors in the AI IPOs that are coming out are ChatGPT and Anthropic. And they will not, because he's going to market to raise the most and best amount of capital, meaning he's going to go to the best investors and raise $5 to $10 billion from BlackRock, and then Vanguard, and then Fidelity, and then major other institutions. He is going to capture this lion's share of the allocations for whatever technology, however you want to call it. You want to call it AI? SpaceX has got it. You want to call it space? SpaceX has got it. When he gets that capital, he's going to be first to market again. And everyone else is going to get the crumbs. And they're going to get the whatever the smaller portion of the allocations are. And because he's going faster with more capital, like significantly more, I don't think those guys will be able to raise more than $10 billion, maybe a couple of billion. But because he's doing this, I think it's just important to understand that first mover advantage in this particular industry, in two verticals, space and AI, is going to have a significant advantage because he's going to have way more capital to deploy, which leads me to the third point, which is orbital data centers. And this has something to do also with robots, but I won't go too much into it. But data centers, he laid out his plan for Terafab and building these, basically a Dyson swarm of data centers and satellites and Starlink satellites across the galaxy. So I think the important part is what is the limit? And I don't think we can actually, like, there is no actual limit. So it's just like, how far can you push the number of data centers we can have in space? And I don't think there's one of my earlier videos to talk about the demand for intelligence is limitless, is because I don't think we can even like understand how much compute power we could have. We could have these giant. I mean, we have these limitations, which he's brought out very well in, I think, the Cheeky Pint podcast with Collison, the Stripe guy, and Dwarkesh, was our limitations on Earth are not just like regulatory and like the limitations of like, oh, I have this, I can build this big of a data center, or I have to get this much energy. It's like all these other people that are like combating that data center should be illegal, or there's not enough capacity, or there's like there's a race for everybody to build the same type of data center. So there's like too many bottlenecks that are slowing everybody down. All of the semiconductor supply chain areas, from the GPUs to software, are probably at their capacity, meaning they're just like, their pipeline is so full they cannot actually they cannot increase the level of capacity because it would take too long for them to do it. I don't know how he's going to do it in space. Some things that I've read is like some things that the moon already has in terms of minerals and metals, and they could build it, and that's where the robots come in. They could do things that humans cannot do, and they could also do it 24/7, so you don't have to send as many humans to space. And then you could build a giant swarm. Obviously, he's got solar panels and stuff, so you can build these gigantic panels to consume the energy from a different factor, as opposed to waiting for natural gas and nuclear or whatever. He has batteries on Earth, and even if he has the ability to 3 to 4x the data center compute from what our current physical limits are on Earth, I don't know the exact dimensions, but if we could only, let's say, have like 2,000 data centers in the America, and he can build 6,000 in space, I have to imagine that intelligence demand is going to be a significant competitive edge. We're already seeing it with clusters 1, 2 at Colossus, which is Grok, on Macro Hard and Macro Harder. I talked about this earlier on. I think he will be able to build 10 times as many GPUs. So I think he's got 2 to 300,000. I don't think 2 to 3 million is out of round. I think that's like the biggest unlock, which will take several years. The space stuff will go first. The capital deployment will happen the fastest. And then we'll see these GPU clusters and Starlink deployments across basically the galaxy now. So I think that's pretty interesting. So I got my eyes on it. I think it's really interesting. I think everybody's got their eyes on it for a couple of reasons, but those are the 3 reasons that I'm paying attention to this SpaceX IPO.